Very interesting thing. The Space Shuttle Discovery being finally put down out of its rest. And I think that just happened this week, actually. So, or wait a second now. I think it was just a couple days ago, right in the midst of the IUFOC. The world's greatest and largest, most monumental UFO Congress in the history of the human species, out in Arizona, put on by Open Minds and the fabulous team therein. Jason, Alejandro, Maureen, everybody involved with the magazine and the organization. You've done a tremendous job getting all of the people together that you have, including Mr. Paul Hellyer. Check out the archives if you want to hear the interview we had with our former Minister of National Defense. It's quite amazing. What a great gentleman he really is. Huge Congress going on out there in Arizona. I really wanted to be there. It's 4 days extravaganza. I've talked about it a million times, so I'm not going to go into it, but it's happening right now as we speak. I don't know who's on the docket right now, even with the time changes and things to think about, but it was a Congress of a lifetime. And hopefully next year I'll get out there. Maybe this year will be the working out the kinks season. I doubt it, because it's quite incredible. Rainbow Eagle was someone I really wanted to see. The indigenous spokesperson out there who has some really amazing views on the future of mankind and the history, as with all indigenous culture, that we're finally waking up to over the last 30 years, the reality of their incredible wisdom. Where would we be without that amazing traditional, medicinal, and historic mythological history of our wonderful indigenous cultures? And still, I have to mention it, even here in our wonderful, comfy life in Canada, our indigenous cultures are really not being taken care of the way they should be, or trained to be able to exist and partake in a society that we've created, this artificial synthetic structure. And no wonder that, it's been difficult for them. But it's a whole new world. Everything's changing. Thank goodness new minds are being born and a whole new reality is unfolding. And we're finally at a point of ultimate grassroots spilling of equilibrium, pushing new ideas and content beyond the realms. We don't need anyone to hold our hand anymore. We don't have to look to, I'm crossing territory here, but in a lot of cases, people don't need to hold the hand of a particular iconic religious god, a government, like a political institution. We realize that all the change is going to happen one individual at a time. You and me. And that's what's going to break open the whole egg and has been spilling out the guts of the UFO enigma, the paranormal enigma, psychic ability, the atrocities that we put our fellow man through has been the work of us, you, me, spilling the beans. And that's the new shifting consciousness and reality right before our minds. IUFOC in Arizona. Thank you, Mr. Rojas, for presenting the world with another great forum. It's been a real big year for ufology. A lot of great people. The Open Minds launch, Leslie Kane, Robert Hastings and his nukes conference, Gary McKinnon all over the news. We're going to talk about him quickly later on, and all kinds of things and events that are a welcome addition to this new guard, as Jesse Randolph would say. And by the way, I haven't had an episode of Ufonaut Light on my podcast subscription since December 10th. I know the number off heart because every time I click on it, that's the only one I see, December 10th. I think he's gotten comfy with his local radio station there and has stopped doing his blog talk feed. I'm really disappointed because it offered a lot of access to the rest of us in the world, and I think that he may have cut off a bit too much when he stopped sending those feeds. And Sandy Fleming, of course, is just a beautiful addition, a wonderful person, and I miss those guys. So hopefully they'll get back on the train and send us some more podcasts. On the same vein of the IUFOC conference, there are other conferences coming up. And in particular, if you follow Whitley Strieber's Dreamland podcast like I do religiously, you'll know about the new Dreamland Festival 4 coming up June 25th to 27th in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, a bit of a background if you don't know who Whitley Strieber is. He wrote Communion back in the 80s and Transformation, and Chris Walken was in his movie Communion, a huge blockbuster success. A New York writer, Mr. Whitley Strieber, who lived in upstate New York and who was having dual reality abduction experiences. He was one of the first guys that I remember who came out saying, I was really mystified by this thing because I was still stuck in the paradigm, the intellectual paradigm, that all things are physical for the most part, other than the mind and maybe some aspects of Akasha, the Akashic Records realm, or the next level of energy. But I was stuck in that social intellectual paradigm of everything being physical, and he was the guy that introduced me and a lot of you people out there to the idea that it's actually non-physical as well. There's a lot more going on there, and this is some kind of cosmic stage for some immaculate galactic play that we're all players in. So that's who Whitley Strieber is. He's written a ton of other fiction books, which for some people they think that he's a little bit untrustworthy, let's just say, with his history of non-reality based stories. But I'm not one of those people. I think he has experienced something amazing, and he's written some tremendous books. In fact, there's been a re-release of Transformation, the second book of Communion, with a really nice cover. He's got a brand new book coming out in April called Hybrids. I can't wait to read this book. And he's actually got another book in the works right now. It's called What Is to Come? The Solution to the Communion Enigma. He's going to be giving readings about that book at this Dreamland Festival 4, Nashville, Tennessee. If you want to check that out, go to the Dreamland website. There's only 130 spaces available. $199 gets you 2 or 3 days there. You get to have a little social gathering with these guys around 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock that first Friday night, the 25th. And you get to talk to all these speakers, including Jim Mars, Whitley Strieber, Ann Strieber, Marla Fries, Linda Moulton Howe, people. It's an amazing, amazing crew of people they have here. Linda Moulton Howe, of course, being the Emmy Award-winning journalist. Her focus being science and the environment, and specifically cattle mutilations. And she's done a lot of work into the Rendlesham case. And I was just talking to Sylvia Richards tonight about Jim Penniston and the download of binary that he said occurred to him when he touched this craft that only really just recently surfaced, that had some mystical explanation once the binary code was deciphered into English. Look into that. Very interesting stuff. William Henry's going to be on that panel, of course, as well, and he just escaped. I use the adjective escaped because he has guided tours through Egypt, an alternate and more spiritual and perhaps esoteric and paranormal version of Egypt, which I think is a lot more legitimate than what Zahi Hawass and Mubarak have been feeding us forever on Cairo and Egypt. He had a whole crew of people over there on this tour, and luckily they got through it okay. They made it back safely, and everything's fine, and he's going to be in Tennessee in June to talk. It's going to be one you don't want to miss, really. This new book by Strieber, What Is to Come, is coming out in 2012, so look for that. And, I was looking into flights to Tennessee because I missed this IUFOC, and I was really disappointed. This was one of the big things on my list. I had a press pass that Rojas and Schrott worked out for me to go down, and I couldn't get there. I had some stuff I had to tie up. The future is wide open now. I'm very excited because then I can go and give you guys some really amazing content and even live clips that I can kind of throw together for an episode of speakers, because these guys and gals are the most renowned and respected people in the world of exopolitics and paranormal activity. So check that out. Also, on the same vein of these conferences, there's a story here of a UFO meeting grounded in Australia, in Darwin. And this was pretty unfortunate because this conference that was going on there, had some pretty heavy sponsorship, and they were going to actually broadcast it to 30 million listeners on the world and global famous Coast to Coast Radio. I'm sure none of you know what that program is, right? Anywho, the ufologist and conference organizer Alan Ferguson was saying that he had to reluctantly push back the date because it was due to the huge earthquake that just took place in Queensland, 6.3 I think it was. And I think they mentioned 80 plus people who perished in the disaster, the infrastructure cracking at the seams there. There's been a lot of heavy damage, and resources, and some of those sponsors wanted to shift their focus to helping out their fellow Australians. So for a good cause, that's been put on hold. There's been no date yet as when this conference in Darwin, Australia will be back, on the forefront and back on the docket. But it's one to look out for because this one was slated to have speakers that included James Fox, Robert Hastings, who wrote the book on UFOs and nukes. James Fox. You got to check out James Fox if you don't know who he is. He's done some amazing work with the BP oil spill, but specifically, I think his documentary was called Out of the Blue, and maybe he did another one about the Phoenix Lights. I can't remember, but check him out. He's fantastic. Nick Pope was going to be there, the legendary British. He worked for the Ministry of Defense, and so many more people were going to be there. So hopefully that gets back on the docket, and we can hear more from Australia, who are really making moves out there, especially with Ben Grundy and Aaron Wright doing their thing with Mysterious Universe, who are making really, really big strides in the world of the paranormal radio and podcasting in the United States and Canada too. Let's take a little break and seize my gabs, slow things down, and give you some tasty candy for your ears. This is The National on Unified Field Radio, a Saturday night, the Michael Horn interview.
I think the kids are in trouble. Do not know what all the troubles are for. Give them ice for their fevers. You're the only thing I ever want anymore. Live on coffee and flowers. Try not to wonder what the weather will be. I figured out what we're missing. Tell you miserable things after you are asleep. Now we'll leave the silver city, 'cause all the silver girls gave us black dreams. Leave the silver city, 'cause all the silver girls, everything means everything. It's a Hollywood summer. You never believe the shitty thoughts I think. Me and my friends out for dinner. When I said what I said, I didn't mean anything. We belong in a movie. Try to hold it together until our friends are gone. We should swim in a fountain. Do not want to disappoint anyone. Now we'll leave the silver city, 'cause all the silver girls gave us black dreams. Leave the silver city to all the silver girls. Everything means everything. I was afraid I'd eat your